So, Donald Trump won, and I was right about the election.
Please clap.
Yep, so Donald Trump won in the Electoral College, although one of my predictions was wrong. Donald Trump did not win the popular vote. There was a few, about a percentage point, so 0.1 of a percentage point in it. And who knew that Hillary Clinton would win enough votes over from Democrats who were potentially not disgruntled enough to hold on to the popular vote. So the Electoral College did not do its job, but like I said, I was right and Donald Trump won. So in a week where all we see is riots, fuck Donald Trump all over, nothing more, nothing less than hypocrisy when talking about tolerance. And who do we accept? Do we accept those with actual diversity, intellectual diversity? Or when we say we accept people, do we not really mean that? Do we mean we accept people with our own opinions until those opinions sway a little bit away from what we believe in, and then we leave it up to, well, let's call them names, let's call them really horrible names, and we lose, and then we'll call them even worse names, and the process repeats. Rinse, repeat, Brexit, Trump, God knows what's next. We'll be talking about all this, and why Cody isn't here, in episode 2 of the Frontline Podcast. So, to start off with this week's edition, I think it's probably a quick chat about my prediction that I said Trump would win, and he'd definitely win the popular vote, which I was wrong about, and I'll admit. However, I did say Trump would win, and he did win in the Electoral College. However, he won Wisconsin, and he won Michigan, which I did not expect. I talked briefly in a Frontline Extra about Michigan, and the way that its demographic is, opposed to its the way that it votes. So, Michigan has a large African American community, which I've been led to believe, and the statistics say in recent history, in the last 60 years or so, is staunch Democrat, always votes Democratic. However, in this election, Michigan went red. It voted for Donald Trump. Interesting, because that means that at least some of the poor African American community voted for Donald Trump. So the whole argument of, if you vote for Donald Trump, you're a racist, but black people can't be racist because racism is prejudice plus power, or so sociologists would lead us to believe, well, then your argument falls down. Not all of Donald Trump's supporters are racist. And I've always believed that almost none of Donald Trump's supporters are racist. It's just they have legitimate concerns about illegal immigration, potentially rational concerns, but they're legitimate from their own personal experience, etc. Many people, and especially on the left, have led us to believe that any criticism of immigration is racist, it's xenophobic, so on and so on. Now, I personally am pro-immigration. As a libertarian, I believe that immigration, it brings only positives to a nation. It brings in cultural diversity as well as workers for jobs, and, you know, adds to the economy, etc., etc. People on the right might say things like they undercut prices, especially when they're coming from poorer countries, that they don't actually make the country more diverse, that they stick to in their own communities, which you can see is understandable, but it will never get any better until we all embrace immigration as a positive. So I've linked in the description below, in fact, a study on the economic effects of immigration and why it's a positive thing. There's no reason to believe that this is gospel. It relies completely on statistics. However, it gives a reasonable case and lots of facts and figures, a lot of maths for a positive case for immigration. The writers are from University College London. I'm not quite sure when the study was. I actually didn't read the date, but I believe it was from 2004. It might have been slightly after, from when the Eastern European countries joined the European Union in 2004, which is when we expected the large amount of immigration, which is what we got. However, not a negative in my opinion. So give that a quick read over. It might not be applicable to map it over to the United States and say, for instance, with Mexico. However, I'm sure it's a good barometer and a good indicator of a positive case for immigration in the United States. To come back onto the trail of thought, what I was talking about was the people in especially southern states who've got this concern about immigration. I don't think they're racist. I don't think they're xenophobic. And that's, as a generalisation, there are going to be individual outliers, of course, for those that are racist and xenophobic, and rightfully we should fight that. I'm not talking about thought policing, I'm talking about teaching. I'm not talking about calling out, I'm talking about teaching. I'm talking about, look, this view is irrational and here's why, but I'm not going to go up to and say, you're a goddamn racist, fuck you, bigot, xenophobe, whatever. It's all a little too harsh, and you don't persuade by insulting, and as we've learned. Anyway, this election cycle has melted my brain. We've seen arguments from the left, arguments from the right, and arguments from the centre. A quick word for now about Gary Johnson and his good yet slightly disappointing results. Now, I am embracing the Libertarian Party. I'll move the mug out of the way in this t-shirt. Being from the UK, I'm not a member, but I do support them, especially when they put out candidates like Gary Johnson. Over the last couple of days, people have blamed Gary for Hillary losing. That Gary's vote in some swing states was more than the gap between Hillary and Donald Trump. Now, to Hillary supporters, I know that it's hard. I know that you feel like you've been kicked while you were down. And I've felt that too. But from a different perspective. I feel kicked by the media. I feel kicked by Hillary Clinton's campaign. The fact that they ran a negative campaign against Gary, and the fact that the media ran a negative campaign against Gary towards the end. Because of the whole "what is Aleppo" moment, that he didn't know what he was doing, that he was too inexperienced, etc., etc. I will mention he is more experienced and more qualified, quote unquote, than Donald Trump is, who is now your president-elect. A message now just to Hillary Clinton and her supporters. You didn't lose because Donald Trump and his campaign and his supporters are racist and xenophobic and misogynistic, etc., etc. And that the rest of the country is that, therefore Donald Trump won. You lost because you're establishment, you're corrupt, you insult, and so on and so on. When Hillary Clinton describes Donald Trump's supporters and puts them together in the basket of deplorables, how do you think that makes them feel? I'm talking now about the guy up in Michigan, for example, who's just been laid off. He's just lost his job. He's been working in the factory 80 hours a week all his life since he left school. He sees someone like Donald Trump and thinks, this guy's fighting for me. Now, of course I don't agree with him all the way. Of course I don't. But he stands up for what I believe in. He stands up for some things that I've said, the anti-politically correct notion that I've sometimes, like for example, workers might have sometimes said, it's harsh on me because an immigrant will undercut my wages, therefore I'm not going to have a job, or any job I can get is not enough for me to live. Donald Trump stands against that. Now, for the largely middle class vote that voted for Hillary Clinton, who really don't know what it's like to be in that situation, how do you think it makes that guy feel when you put him in a basket of deplorables? You just rile him up more, make him even more angry, and make him think, no, I'm voting for Donald Trump. He stands up for what I believe in. This election is not about you, it's about me. It's about change, it's about what I want. Not what any of you want, not what the establishment wants to keep. This election is about what I want. You don't get to decide, I do. Okay? That's what a lot of these Donald Trump supporters and Donald Trump voters probably went into the polling booths like. They probably decided, you know what? This is... Why? Why keep this crappy system that just bogs me down, that just insults me, that just makes me feel like shit, that just tells me I'm in the basket of deplorables, that tells me I'm a racist, that tells me I'm a sexist, that tells me I'm a xenophobe, that really belittles me and makes me feel like less than human. Why would I care about that? What? Just for the sake of, well, it's probably better than Donald Trump. Why should I give a shit? Why should I care? What's it to do with me? When all I know is, I can't afford to put gas in my car. I can barely put food on the table for my family. I'm depressed, I don't have work. I can't afford to heat the house. And you're going to tell that guy that he's deplorable. We talk about tolerance so fucking much in the West generally. How about we fucking tolerate everyone? How about we tolerate absolutely everyone? No matter what their views are, no matter what the colour of their skin is, no matter what religion they believe in. It gets me mad. It gets me so mad that people on the left insult working people, people who work so damn hard, people who are just trying to make a living, and they insult them with words that they probably haven't even ever heard of, because that's what it's like to be working class. It's not all for the working class person. It's not all about, oh, what words can I not say anymore? What I need to watch what I'm doing today. It's I need to get food on the table for my family, and I need to make sure my family doesn't freeze. Okay? This election was a change election. Donald Trump represented change. Hillary Clinton represented the establishment that has bogged down the working man for the last 8 years. We haven't seen something like this in a long time. Now, I don't support Donald Trump at all. I think he's a big swinging set of balls, as Ben Shapiro said. But Christ almighty, did I not support Hillary Clinton. I did not support her supporters or anything. But the difference between me and them is I embrace their support. I say, well, I think you're wrong, but everyone is entitled to that opinion. Same with Donald Trump supporters. I supported Gary, who didn't even get 5% of the vote. A man who I thought was the best man for the job, but the rest of the United States didn't. Sorry for the hardcore rant there, but I'm very passionate. I think we'll probably better move on now at this point. We'll move on to looking at some footage of the tolerant left. Here they are. So that was the tolerant left. Out on the streets being really tolerant. As tolerant as you can get. Wonderful. Now, a lot of other podcasters on the, I'm going to call them on the right, or not on the normal sort of moderate, kind of the standard moderate, they've been calling out these protesters, saying that they're immature, etc. Well, okay, what they're doing is kind of hypocritical. As I've just described, they're not the tolerant type that we thought they were. But god damn it, it's their right to go out and protest. And for me, it really shows positive change that despite the fact we've got someone like Trump in the White House, it doesn't mean that the entire country thinks like Donald Trump. That more people, actually, who supported Hillary Clinton are different, however you want to say. Their aggressive tolerance can be seen. I'm just glad that more kids, more people my age are getting into politics. Yeah, they're being harsh, and yeah, I've just had a massive rant about them, but I'd rather that than them, like, not do anything, or just sort of accept that the world's shit, they can't do anything about it, because that would be crap, that would be terrible. I'm so glad that so many young people are engaged, and that they're forming these opinions, and yeah, these opinions are going to change. 3 years ago, I would have been out there with them if I lived in the United States. I'd have been out there, I'd have been out, there was banners up, I'd have gone the full 9 yards, I'd have been Donald Trump's all these words. You name it, I'd have said it. But you know, you grow older, your politics change slightly, you see the world a little better. And you know, it's not always a bad thing to shift to the right slightly. Or in my opinion, or in my case, to go to the economic right, but stay on the social left, stay on the tolerating left. Unfortunately for these people out protesting, it doesn't change the result. Donald Trump still won in the Electoral College. Hillary Clinton still lost. But you can always incite change. Now, you're never going to get a candidate, except maybe Bernie Sanders, who believes in all these things that you're shouting for and that you're killing the world for. That you're saying the world's all these terrible things, the United States is even worse than all these terrible things, and we need to get rid of it. You're never going to get a candidate who's saying, well, the United States sucks, vote for me. Because the majority of the United States is going to think, well, I don't really trust this guy. But there's a few future candidates out there who've seen this and thought, it's about time we pandered to these kids. It's about time that these are the next generation of voters. It's about time that we understood and took on their beliefs. Now, I'm not talking hardcore regressive left policy. I'm talking social change. Now here comes rant number 2. And this is probably going to be untypical for this show. And I'm not pandering to the SJW left, but I'm going to sound a little like it, and maybe a little Gary Johnson here. But dear Conservatives, you believe in small government. On the economic scale, congratulations. Your beliefs almost line up with that. We're talking about lower taxes, awesome. Lowering the corporation tax, awesome. Cutting federal spending, awesome. But hang on. Military spending. Why do you want to spend so much on the military? Why are you shifting that money from social programs to the military? No. If you cut spending, you cut spending. So let's say we get over that barrier. Why do you want to stop gay people from getting married? Why do you want to stop women getting abortions? Do you realise how silly that is? To say you're about small government and then imposing all these supposedly moral values on everyday people. Don't impose religion because your religion teaches it. The United States is founded on freedom of religion. It's not founded on Christianity. You know, most of the founding fathers were deists, not Christians. Now, I'm not insulting Christians here. Cody, who's not here today, my co-presenter, he's a Christian. And I accept his values. In fact, I embrace them. And usually Christian values are fine. They teach tolerance and love, as do Islamic values teach tolerance and love, and Hindu values, etc., etc. But when your scripture says, or you believe your scripture tells you that a woman doesn't have the right to choose, or that two men who love each other like any man or woman can't express that love in marriage, how's that fair? They might not necessarily believe in that religion. And the United States as a country doesn't believe in that religion. Small government does not impose social values. So conservatives, when you say things like abortion treads on the rights of the fetus, can you leave that up to the Surgeon General? Can you actually leave that up to medical professionals? Don't politicise this. Now, Amy Schumer, for all her fucking faults, she made an advert where she had all these old white politicians, SJW rhetoric, coming in into a sort of gynecology or whatever it is meeting. Okay, yeah, it had an SJW twist, but what she was saying was absolutely right. That the government and politicians should stay way out of stuff like that. What has the government got to do with a woman being in charge of her own life? What's the government got to do with what two men do in their own bedroom, or what two people do in their own bedroom? What's the government got to do with what gender you are? People are worried about Donald Trump, but I would be worried about Mike Pence if I was anyone, because his views on social openness and social tolerance are terrible. Now, I actually am not an SJW. I'm fairly anti-SJW, actually. But at least what they say is right on social values, that if they want a small government, then at least that government can't decide what to do with other people's lives. Here's where I differ. If you want an abortion, don't expect taxpayer money to pay for it. Okay? Because that's a small government. Conservatives in the United States baffle me. Absolutely baffle me. Claiming to be about small government and then trying to impose their social beliefs on other people's lives. You talk about liberty. That's not liberty. That's authority. That is religious rule. You talk about the left's mob rule. That's mob rule. That's not fair. That's not tolerance. That's not peace. You're telling people how to live their lives. Conservatives, you're doing it wrong. Liberals in America are also doing it wrong. It's worrying, I know. But hey, at least the debate's on the table. Up next, we're going to take a look at some SJW arguments about segregation. This has just pissed me off. See you in 2 minutes. So, to move on from the election, at Berkeley, a few weeks ago, we had this old argument again of students for segregation. Students wanting to be segregated by the colour of their skin. This is apparently the left now. Do you realise how insane that is? Do you realise what people in the African American community have done over the last 50, 60 years? The amazing, amazing work that they've done. And do you want to reverse that? That is insane. When Martin Luther King said, and I'm not going to quote it exactly because I'm not quite sure, but he said something along the lines of, I hope to live for a day where my children are not judged by the colour of their skin, but rather the content of their character. And you'd rather reverse that. You do want to judge people by the colour of their skin. That white people are just terrible. And that people with black skin need their own safe space. Need to be segregated because white people are just terrible. That is segregation. It's bordering on racism. Here's some footage of people in favour of it. Dear me.
I hope you fucking fall, bro.
Put the fuck down.
So those of you that did history or know anything about history from school or from reading will know about Brown versus Education Board 1954, where segregation was deemed unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. What these people want is actively against the Constitution. And not only that, there's a study in the description below that shows that segregation has a negative impact on grades. What is the necessity then? Why are you trying so hard to go back to the 1960s and 50s, where the United States was intolerable? A quick note as well. Segregation, doing of the Democratic Party, which is why I can never support the Democratic Party, because of its racist roots. But yeah, that's the left these days. Regressive and all over the place. Yeah, the heart's in the right place, but that's a long way away from the brain being in the right place. Abusing people by the colour of their skin for political gain. No, that's not what we do. That's not what we do here. We embrace everyone, no matter what the colour of their skin is, and no matter what they believe. And yeah, you have the right to say terrible things about people by the colour of their skin. That's freedom of speech, which I'm in favour of. But everyone else has the right to call you a dick. Yeah, you can create safe spaces in a university, but it doesn't help. Doesn't make anybody's situation any better, because all you get is an echo chamber. All you get is hearing the same opinions over and over again and not realising what the real world's like, and that the real world is shit. The real world isn't going to pander to your opinions. It's not going to get the police round when you get offended. There is no right to not be offended. And yeah, I can say that because I'm a white male or whatever, and I've never had any bad experiences in my life. You don't know my life, but whatever. You can believe whatever you want. But there is no right to not be offended. Other things in the SJW left that I just find absolutely insane is how the left has moved on in the last 10 years is crackers. Really is. Most of my friends are on the left, so apologies if I've insulted any of you or anyone else who's watching this who's on the left, because I really do know that your heart's in the right place. But by God, these policies are terrible. These policies are awful. To move on from that, we're going to talk about hashtag badass of the week. Back in 2. So, badass of the week this week goes to Mr. Trey Gowdy, Republican. He would have got it last week, but we didn't have time to mention it. I'm going to give you some footage just after this of him just being purely badass, putting people down, just like, bam. What the fuck was that? Bow. Watch out for these finger guns. How are you doing? He practiced law, I believe, and he seems very well educated in it. And he's where I got the inspiration from, this persuasion and not and tolerating everyone, no matter of every type of diversity, especially intellectual diversity. He was the one who sort of inspired me into that. So, footage of that next.
And we'll finish. We'll say this to those who benefit from the president's policies. You may be willing to allow the end to justify the means in this case. You may well like the fact that the president has abused prosecutorial discretion and conferred benefits in an unprecedented way. You may benefit from the president's failure to enforce the law today, but I'll make you this promise. There will come a day where you will cry out for the enforcement of the law. There will come a day where you long for the law to be the foundation of this republic. So you be careful.
So in this final segment, we're keeping it short today because 1, we haven't got Cody, and 2, being on my own is a bit different. But you know, I remember when Carl Pilkinson used to do their podcasts on his own, and it was just hilarious. Honestly, I feel like I'm presenting the news here. It's completely just like, I am God. My opinions are gospel. They're not, by the way. Believe whatever you want. But yeah, so Cody's not here, so me being on my own, there's basically less words from one person, half as many words if you do the maths. So in this final segment, we're going to talk about celebrities and their interesting opinions and the grasp they have on politics. We'll start with Amy Schumer, who we've already mentioned her. She buys the whole let's call everyone a racist, and would probably call me one. Thanks, Amy. You know, they go on Twitter, say what they want for the candidate they like, usually the one on the left, well, obviously the one on the left. And then all these kids that like them are persuaded by that. They don't know anything about economics. Why don't you put Amy Schumer in charge of the Treasury? See how she gets on. Crack on. See how you get on with it. Now, celebrities are allowed and entitled to an opinion on politics, but their opinion is worth the same as everybody else's. You know, they're not experts. You know, Amy Schumer's a comedian and an actress. She's not a political thinker. Nor are any of these people on the left. But the grasp they have on politics is insane. It's insane. It's insanity that Hillary Clinton gets Jay-Z, Beyonce, all these people at her rallies, and then that's it. People come, well, now I support Hillary Clinton. Sorry? How does that work? How does a celebrity endorsement matter? You know what mattered to me? One thing that mattered to me a lot during this election cycle was I was hoping to hell that Gary Johnson would get Mitt Romney's endorsement. Mitt Romney, he lost in 2012. Most people in Britain probably forgotten about him. Most people in America have probably forgotten about him. But you know, he was more or less a moderate. And to me, he should have a lot of influence. He's Mitt Romney. I didn't care if Gary Johnson got... I don't know I don't know any celebrities. I don't know, bloody Michael Bublé. If you got Michael Bublé's endorsement, would it matter? Would it fuck? Michael Bublé doesn't know anything about politics. He might not do. He might be a politics expert. But his opinion shouldn't matter. Bloody happened to me here. But his opinion shouldn't matter. It does. It matters as much as everybody else's, but his opinion isn't up there. Harsh on celebrities. Harsh on the average person. But people who've been there, done that, that's who it really matters for. For Donald Trump, he probably was delighted and over the moon that Ted Cruz finally endorsed him. That's good. Donald Trump doesn't care if Stephen Baldwin says, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Jesus Christ, that was not Stephen Baldwin. Don't know who that was. But anyway, Donald Trump doesn't care if he gets Stephen Baldwin's endorsement, because that doesn't matter. He's just a person with an opinion. But Ted Cruz has influence, real influence in politics. Just a few final words, I guess, on this whole week. Now I've pretty much insulted everyone. Apologies to any celebrities, but you've probably got enough money to not give a fuck what some kid sat behind a desk thinks. Actually, before I go fully, just want to give Oreos, the best biscuit to dip in your tea. Shameless plug to Oreo. Thanks for making amazing biscuits. The packaging is packaging because Fort Knox isn't strong enough. Packaging's hard. But yeah, the best biscuits in town, Oreos. They're not sponsoring me, I'm just telling you. But yeah, quick final few words. Celebrities, sorry if I insult you, but your opinions don't matter that much. Other people, sorry if I insult you, but your opinions don't matter that much. Politicians, sorry if I insult you, your opinions are worth slightly more than your average person's. But I don't care. Anyway, that's been the Frontline Podcast this week. Do we have anything else to talk about? I might just have a quick talk about some other random stuff. I'll probably stick a video up of something that I find interesting at the end here. Just let's watch something funny. Here's a funny clip. Wasn't that bloody hilarious? Wish the whole world could be like this. Anyway, see you next week. You've been watching the Frontline Podcast, episode 2. Ta-ra.